Well, hey, glad to be with you again. And today's topic is why the law of buy-in matters more today than maybe ever. So, John Maxwell, in his book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, is about 30 years old now. And I remember reading that for the first time and just thinking how powerful these different principles were and just absorbing them and trying to apply them to my leadership and just my relationships, everything that I could. And I was just reading an article. It was actually an article about marketing and business development, but it really triggered this idea for me that maybe go back to think about the law of buy-in. And the reason I did that is because I think that now, and kind of what this article was bringing up is that because of the internet, because of AI, there are so many, I'll say generic, general, vanilla experts or gurus out there, or just information in general that all of us have so much access to, which is great on one level. On the other hand, though, what the author of the article, Mike Kim, what he was saying was, having information is one thing, but actually being able to um, make people want to listen to you is quite another. And I thought, you know what? That's not just true in marketing and sales. That's true in leadership. That's true in business in general. Because everybody has a voice and a platform now, right? Whether you utilize it or not is up to you. But all of us, just think about social media and how that's just changed everything. Where, now we think about everybody has to share their opinion, it seems like. I flip through, or scroll through my feed and I want to read a news story or see, sports score, whatever. And it's like all these just opinions just pouring in the comments about whatever is shared. And that's a lot of noise in our world. So, as leaders, how do we cut through the noise so that people first want to follow us and then second stay with us on the journey that we're leading them on? And I think that the law of buy-in becomes very relevant. And once again, the law of buy-in simply states that people buy into the leader, then the vision. So if you just expect people to follow you because you have a great vision, some will, if they really are that compelled. But many people are saying, okay, well, that vision sounds nice, but who are you? Or why would I follow you to go after that vision? And that's where I think this is the key differentiator. Why should I listen to you? That's what people are asking. They're asking at work, like, why should I listen to my boss, my manager, my supervisor, my director, whatever title? Why should I work hard? Because they say something or they have a vision or an idea about what we should be doing. See, you can cast vision. You can tell people, here's the direction of the business, or here's where we're going, or here's this project we're going to tackle. And that in and of itself is a vision of some sort. But people start to ask themselves, well, why? Why are we doing that? Or why should I follow you to do that? Or where did this come from? All these questions start being asked. And I think as leaders, if we can address these things and say, you know what, here's where this vision came from. Here's why I think it's where we need to go. And here's why I hope you follow me. And some of that is credentials, some of that is experience that you can share. But I think the X factor in all this is your character. I was actually talking to a couple of leaders yesterday about how, this whole idea of magnetic leadership that I talk about is really about character based leadership tactics or skills. Nothing that I teach in my book, The Magnetic Leader, or my course, my magnetic leadership course, is rocket science. You could look through the table of contents in my book, you could scroll through the lessons in my course, and you would say, yeah, these things make sense. They seem pretty simple. And I would agree. But the problem is that simple doesn't mean that people are doing them. Just because something is simple doesn't mean they're executing those simple ideas or concepts or principles. See, that's the problem is so many leaders are not putting things into practice that actually drive that buy-in that they want. So, do you truly care about your people? Because people want to know that you do. It's that saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Well, that's not just about teaching people, that's about leading people. People don't follow you just blindly anymore. That may have been an era where, maybe the organization or the executives, the owner had more leverage. Today, it's the Wild West, it's an open free market of employment. It's a free agency market. People come and go from jobs all the time. And what used to be looked down upon if people were job hopping is not looked down upon nearly like it once was. And so when companies, organizations are looking for good people, they'll overlook some of that track record and look at the person's skills and ability. What can you bring to me? What can you bring to the table today? My immediate need, because the job market is kind of wild, as many of you know. So my point is, if you're a leader worth following, if you're somebody that people say, you know what, I really like that person, I trust that person, they care about their people, they invest in their people, they ask, how am I doing, not just as a worker or an employee, but how am I doing as a person? How's my family? See, it's not about blurring or crossing, I'll say, professional personal lines. That's what a lot of people fear. I think it's really about just being a good human being to the people that you're leading. Asking them how things are going at home. Doesn't mean you have to be nosy and dig in and be, intrusive, but asking people how their kids' season's going, or how their family's doing during the holidays, or um, how their vacation went. Just getting to know the person as a person outside the job and the tasks is one way to I think it's very surface, but it's still one way to start understanding people and creating that buy-in because you're interested in them. Years ago, I was actually leading a youth mission trip, and there was a family that was on the trip from another group that had joined up with us, and they were an American family, but the girls of the family had been raised in Australia. And so they were moving back to the US, and I was just very curious. Ever since Crocodile Dundee in the 80s, I loved Australia, and I was just asking a lot of questions to the girls, and just what's it like growing up over there? What were the best things? What were the challenges? All these things, and I would just, I was just listening. I was truly curious about what life in Australia was like. And one of the kids on our trip in my group said, "Man, you just asked like 20 questions." And I said, "Yeah, but they kept answering because people like to talk about themselves and their experiences and just what their background is." And for me, I wasn't trying to be intrusive. I was genuinely curious. Like, I'd never been to Australia. I still would love to go there someday. I haven't been there yet. But those kids had grown up there, and now they were trying to acclimate to the US. And so that was just a really interesting conversation I was having. But asking questions and just understanding where they were coming from and what the challenges were, even moving back this way, and all the things that they were going through, it was just a way to understand where they were coming from and build a relationship. And the reality is, you can do that any day with any of your people, whether it's people you're leading directly or just a peer in your organization. It could be your supervisor, whatever the case may be, whatever position you're in. Because what happens is when you treat people as human beings and you care about them as a person first and then a worker second, you create buy-in because they think, you know what, that person, he or she's a really nice person. I like to talk with them. They genuinely are interested in me. They're friendly. They're compassionate. I mean, these are simple things, but once again, simple doesn't mean that it's common. So when you're creating buy-in, you have to be thinking about the person first and foremost, and then about the vision. See, a vision is compelling. And when you share a vision, some people are going to say, you know what, I really want to be a part of that. Other people would say, you know what, that's just not for me. And so, vision, both just like magnetic leadership, I talk about, vision attracts and it repels. But so does leadership and your approach to your people. Your approach attracts and repels. One thing I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I'm really exploring this, is this whole thing that we keep seen studies and results of the Gallup poll research year after year for the last like 25 years about employee engagement. And it keeps saying that two-thirds of employees are disengaged or actively disengaged, which creates, unhealthy cultures, or they sabotage the organization. So only 1 out of 3 employees across the board of all their studies is truly engaged in the organization. Obviously, those numbers fluctuate from organization to organization, but as a general business principle or result of this survey, that's the stats, and it hasn't really changed much over these 25 years. And I really started thinking more about that even recently about, well, what is what creates engagement, right? Like, what is it that really truly creates engagement that makes somebody want to give their best effort, to show up with energy and enthusiasm? And sometimes you have to first define the word. So, what is engagement? So, you need to define what that looks like for your organization, your team. But then you have to think about, well, what creates it? And for me, the word that I'm really thinking about and kind of pondering right now is inspiration. What inspires people? And so much of what I talk about, right, in this podcast and my blog and in my coaching is how can you consistently attract, engage, and retain high quality team members, customers, and clients? Because it goes beyond just your team, internally. It goes also to the customers and clients you have and what makes them want to engage with your business, your products, your services. What makes them want to engage with that, and not just engage with it once, but engage with it over a longer time horizon, so that you have that retention rate for your customers and clients as much as you have a retention rate for your employees. And so what I'm saying is inspiration, I think, is a key part of that. Well, what creates inspiration, or how do you inspire, becomes the next question that I ask. And I think a lot of inspiration starts with who you are. Are you an inspiring person? And it's not just about what you've done and having this fancy resume and all these results, which was part of inspiration. Don't get me wrong. We like to look up to people who have accomplished big things, and we're like, I want to be like that person. I want to have results like they have. So I understand that sometimes and many times we may start there, but once again, pretty surface level, because I may see your results and be inspired by them, and then get to know you and say, well, I don't really like that person. So yeah, they may have accomplished some really amazing things, but they're not the kind of person I aspire to be. And therefore, I don't have buy-in for who you are. So as a leader, do you not only have results that inspire and maybe attract people at the beginning, but do you inspire them beyond that because of who you are? See, a lot of leaders, I think, can easily fall into the task orientation trap. And I know I've been in there many times because I'm a doer, I'm a get it done guy. And if I see a task list and things that need to get done, as soon as that's clear and evident, I just knock it out. And that's my drive. But I also care about people. And so I've had to put the tasks on the back burner many times and actually delay results in order to care for the people I'm leading or engaging with. And while internally I might feel that tension and go, I just want to get to my task and get those done, it's kind of that competitive scoreboard keeping for that side of things. I also realize that the longer game is about the people. No matter what business we're in, we're all in the people business in some way, shape, or form. And so, how do I balance getting things done, being productive, with caring for people, becomes the question in that situation. But the reality is inspiring people is not just about getting results. Inspiring people is also about who you are and your character. And here's the thing, there are people that you are going to attract and inspire that I won't, and vice versa, because there are certain values that we each have. There are certain methods we go about things, or approaches we go about things that, some people say, I love Chris's way, and so I want to do it that way, or I love this other person's way, so I want to do it that way. That's fine. And we all do that, right? We all veer one way or the other to follow certain people in certain ways but once again, it's about who they are. So I may want a certain result, and I can go out and search the internet, for instance, and find a dozen people who have gotten that result. But then it comes down to, well, out of those people, who would I want to work with the most? Who would I want to engage with the most? And for me, there's been coaches that I have uh, gone through their programs over the years. I have followed them. I've signed up for their newsletters and follow them on social media and all these things to stay connected to them because I value what they've created. But I don't stay around unless I feel like it's a values match or if it's a just a way of how they operate and I feel like they're good people that I want to follow and engage with. Because here's the thing, there's been plenty of people who I thought, you know what, I want to do what they've done. I want to accomplish what they've accomplished. And then I get to know them. I get to hear them and whether it be online or even offline in person. And I'll be like, you know what? I like their results. I like what they've been able to accomplish, but I don't connect with them or I don't trust them because of maybe how they've done what they've done. Yeah, they got results, but maybe they stepped on people or hurt people along the way or did some things that were shady, ethically, at least from my point of view and my ethics. But at the same time, there's people that, connect with and learn from that same person and don't have any qualms about it. And they just follow that person. And I'm not saying they're following them blindly, even. Sometimes they're just like, you know what? They're my kind of person. I connect with them. I want to be engaged with them. Once again, it's buy-in, right? I may not buy into a person, but the next person does. So I just want to bring this up as leadership topic today because if you have a vision, whether it be a big grand vision for your organization of where you're going to go in the next 3 to 10 years, whether it be a project vision, whether it be a specific goal that we're going to go after this quarter, whatever the case may be, just realize that the vision is important. It really is. You need to, as a leader, if you don't have vision, people aren't going to follow you. So therefore, you're losing and diminishing your leadership credibility. But I also want to remind you and highlight to you that who you are is going to really create the buy-in for people to go after that vision with you. And I just want to encourage you to think about how much buy-in are you getting? Do people buy into you first and then your vision? Some people will follow the vision and go after it because they might say, you know what, I don't really trust or like this person, but I like the vision and what it'll do for me because I was a part of it. Some people will stick around for that. Other people will say, you know what, I like the vision, but I don't trust the leader, so I'm not going to go on that journey. And so I'm going to go find something else, a different opportunity or a different focus. But creating buy-in is so critical as leaders. And I just want to encourage you today to think about what are you doing to create the buy-in so that you truly have a dream team that will go after the vision with you. Because that's the thing is who you are. This goes back to the law of magnetism that John Maxwell talks about as well, is who you are is who you attract. So we need diversity on our teams to bring different skills and perspectives and experiences together so that we can see things and accomplish things, especially when we run into the hangups and pitfalls. What are different people's experiences? How have they worked around issues like this? What do they see? It's like that kaleidoscope thing, that different angles show different perspectives. You need that in your team. But what's going to attract people and inspire people and keep them on your team and in your organization, that comes down to who you are as a leader. People buy into the leader, then the vision. If you need help with thinking this through, or you need help with understanding this more, or you're saying, you know what, Chris, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know how to really roll this out. I don't know how to develop my leadership character, or my team needs training to, I need better leaders across the board, across different divisions and organizational components. Then I encourage you to go to McClureCoaching.com and click on the button to apply for a free strategy session. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to understand what your goals are and your challenges and how I can help you. And I'd love to schedule a time to do that. So go to my website. I'd love to connect with you there, and then we can definitely look at how does this look going forward for you? How does this look as where you are as a leader today versus where you want to be, and what's the gap, and how do we bridge that gap? And maybe coaching and training is something I can offer to you or your team. Maybe it's just that call in and of itself will help you get some traction on what you need to do. At no cost, as a free consultation. So Go to McClureCoaching.com, and I'd love to see you there. And I will connect with you next time. Take care.